A few days ago, Joe Biden stumbled out of his basement to tell America we shall now be fighting 2 wars, since, after all, we can afford it. As Wall Street Silver put it, of course we can't afford 2 wars, we can't even afford peace. The current resident of the White House delivered the news on 60 Minutes, where interviewer Scott Pelley asked, are the wars in Israel and Ukraine more than the United States can take on at the same time? Biden responded angrily, no, we're the United States of America, for God's sakes, the most powerful nation in the world, not in the world, in the history of the world, the history of the world. This is all direct quotes. He added, we can take care of both of these and still maintain our overall international defense. In other words, the wars will continue, despite $2 trillion deficits and $34 trillion in national debt, along with yet more trillions in deficits when the recession actually hits in force. Why? Because the most powerful in the history of God's sake does precisely that. It goes bankrupt, blowing things up, or being blown up all over the world. Biden went on to say the reason we're involved in Ukraine, giving them weapons, intelligence, $100 billion here and there, risking a dollar collapse in World War III, is so that we don't get drawn into a European war. So we're involved in a European war, so we don't have to get involved in a European war. A lesser intellect might respond that perhaps the way to not get drawn into a war is not to get drawn into it, but Joe Biden is playing 3D chess here. Moreover, what's concerning is that it's not just the 2 wars. That little throwaway line at the end there, the overall international defense, that is referring to the 200-odd mini-wars the Pentagon keeps on a simmer in hopes one of them could someday grow up to be a real war and raise Lockheed's dividend. One recent chart from Visual Capitalist shows precisely 177 countries in which the U.S. military are deployed. An updated list would actually have to include most of sub-Saharan Africa, including vital interest Burkina Faso and Taiwan, where the U.S. has now stationed Marines to ensure a guaranteed tripwire for World War III. So what is next? Brought to you by Unchained. What's next is the military-industrial complex is gutting America, draining our blood and dwindling treasure to make America the maximum number of enemies in the shortest amount of time. This actually puts the American people in danger. It is the precise opposite of defense, while keeping hundreds of wars on simmer worldwide, killing people on both sides. In his 1961 farewell address, Dwight D. Eisenhower warned of exactly this, saying, quote, we must guard against the acquisition of unwarranted influence by the military-industrial complex. The potential for the disastrous rise of misplaced power exists and will persist. There was a rush of momentary optimism a few years ago with Trump, who was deeply hostile to the permanent wars. Unfortunately, with Trump now out of power, both of America's political parties are dominated by warmongers. And so Eisenhower's disastrous rise of misplaced power is upon us. Today it's 2 wars. Tomorrow will be 3. They literally will not stop. Okay, we'll be watching. See you next time.